Alright, so for part 2 of this, I'm going to take this and finish painting it and crafting the side pieces. And you'll notice it's a rather glossy, rather garish red. That was just an undercoat I did. Or not an undercoat, I'm sorry, a primer coat that I did. And next, I'm going to go through and I'm going to use some of this Valspar Project Perfect. This is the closest color to what I feel like it looks like when I watch the Netflix series or look at screenshots of it. And do a little test there. I don't feel like it's quite red enough, so I don't know if I'm going to give this a solid coat. Probably just an overspray overall to start, and then go from there. Of course, I have my painting mask and safety goggles and headlamp, just so I can have a little more illumination. And just to give you an idea how important this is relatively new. And you can see just how dark and dingy and crusty it is from just a couple of uses. Yet the inside is still white. All that stuff would be in your lungs. So always wear a respirator mask whenever you use spray paint. You can see that's already taken a lot of the shine off of it and added a bit more depth to it. And as I'm spraying this, I'm holding it about a foot and a half away, a little bit further than I normally would. And on this front area here, it's a little darker, so I'm applying this a little bit heavier. Okay. Quick once over. Touch up any spots I may have missed. Make sure everything is nice and even. Okay. So it's retained a lot of its red look, but it still has that darker color. Alright, now I'm going to let this dry for about 24 hours, and I'm going to come back and check on it. Alright, so now that I've let this dry for about 24 hours, I'm going to start painting in all this in here. And I'm just going to use a cheap craft brush. It's not even a nice one. It's pretty beat up and nasty, so you don't need anything great to do this. And I'm going to use black acrylic craft paint that I mixed with some leftover modge podge. And the only reason I mixed it is because the acrylic's really flat and the Mod Podge is gloss. So I mixed some in with it. That way I have a little bit of shine to it. You don't need to do that. I just did that. As you can see, I'm just giving this pretty much just a rough once over. I don't mind so much if the black shows through, or I'm sorry, if some of the burgundy red shows through. I just want to get it a little darker so you have that contrast. Okay, now I've gone through, done this on all three sides. This side, of course, is still wet. You can see here, this is almost dry, and this side here is completely dry. There's not much gloss, but there's just enough that you can see the texture of this fabric. Right now, the overspray that I did has dried. I'm a lot happier with the color. This is a much darker, closer to the show color. And next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish these side pieces that are going to come off here. And to do that, I'm going to use a Sharpie and a regular old piece of computer paper. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this up into here and draw the outline here in the way I want the mouthpiece to extend off of this so that it looks like this. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. Now that I've cut it out, it's going to fit up in here like this. And this bottom tab here is going to have maybe some elastic or something with some Velcro that's going to go underneath my chin. I'm going to go ahead and make another pattern off this other side. Even though I'm pretty sure this is pretty symmetrical, I'm still going to make a separate pattern for each side. Next, I'm going to use a pen and trace these out on some 5mm EVA craft foam. Now that I've cut them out, I want to point out that I cut the edges here as straight as possible. And this is because this piece is going to glue in here. Although I'm not going to glue it in quite yet, because first I'm going to cover it with some of this same textured cloth, craft fabric that I got for $1.99 a yard. It's the same stuff that I used here, and I'm going to go ahead and glue some of that to these. Okay, so I've cut my pieces of cloth, and whenever I glue these on, I'm going to have this side in a little closer because I want some here to be able to fold over. Okay, and to glue these together, I'm using Loctite spray adhesive. I'm going to spray both sides that are going to be joined together and then glue them. Okay, I've gone through and given these a pretty liberal layer of the adhesive, mostly because both the foam and the cloth are pretty absorbent, and I really want this to bond together well. And I'm going to let this dry for about a minute and then go ahead and join them. Okay, now that I've gone ahead and glued these on, I've cut a series of V's because I'm going to be folding this edge over. Okay, and now that I've folded the outside edge over on the right and left pieces, I'm going to go ahead and trim all this off on the back side. Now that everything is glued and attached, I put some contact cement here on the edges and on the inside edge here. And what I'm doing is I'm gluing this on so that it all matches up nice and even to the mask itself. And this is the part here that's going to go under my chin and Velcro down here on the bottom. I've glued both sides on. Before I test fit this, I'm going to go through and all these seams here on the inside, I'm going to start filling in with a little bead of hot glue just to help make sure that everything is sealed all around on this. All the various seams here where I've contact cemented, you can see I've already put a thin small bead on this one here. I'm going to go through and do up everything else. Right now this is all glued on, and I've gone ahead and sealed up the inside here. I'm going to go ahead and try this on and take some Daredevil selfies and see how this looks. Okay, so it's not much of a contrast, but you can probably notice this is now darker than the rest of the mask. And what I did was I masked all this stuff off, and including the centerpiece, and I just used some black spray paint. I didn't film this because I couldn't get the lighting right, and also the distance at which I did it. I held the can about 3 feet back and just did a very light mist of black spray paint, and then I went over with a very light mist of the same dark burgundy red that I did over the light red, so you can see the contrast difference now. If you look at promotional posters and pictures and things like that, they make the red look like it's all one color, but when you actually watch the TV show, this area here and here is almost like a black color. I didn't want it that dark. Much like I cut the nose up at slight an angle as a nod to the comics. In the show, it comes out, and I just feel like it looks too much like Batman. So those are a couple of things, obviously, that I changed that aren't like the show. Okay, so next, I'm going to start working on the Velcro. I'm going to trim these pieces to fit once I try it on, and I'm going to put Velcro on both sides, so this will attach snugly underneath my chin once I put the mask on. Alright, so I cut off a couple pieces of Velcro, and just using some Gorilla super glue, and the Velcro, if it matters or doesn't, is actually not called Velcro, it's called hook and loop from Zoology. I'm pretty sure excuse me, that they couldn't call it Velcro because it's a copyrighted term, but it's the same thing, does the same thing. This was like, I think $1.99 at the craft store, and it's 36 inches worth of it, so that's a lot. You won't run out anytime soon for $2. And yeah, just glued it on with some super glue. Now this will attach and fit all snug underneath my chinny chin chin. And the final part of this is the eye lenses, the red eye lenses. I had thought of several different ways to do this, and one of them was to try to find some red lens sunglasses and remove the lenses, but I'm super broke. So I had the idea to take the packaging from my breath mask that I use whenever I sand and spray paint, and I just cut a couple of ovals out of the domed outer part of it. I cut these out of both sides, and initially I tried to heat cellophane to conform to it, and that didn't work. But I had this red cellophane lying around. I also considered getting red window tint and heating it and trying to get it to fit, but it just gets too hot and ends up melting both things. I tried this with a different, some different packaging plastic first to see how that'd work, and it just didn't. So I ended up going the ultimate generic route, and I took a red Sharpie and just colored in these pieces that I cut out. And then I just glued them in with some super glue. And after that dried, I put a little bead of hot glue around them just to help hold that in there. And that, for the most part, is pretty much it. Although I want to try this on and see how it looks. Okay, so here it is. I've got it on. Fits pretty good. It's pretty comfortable. This isn't the easiest thing to see out of, but I can see everything around me. So it does work out. I feel like it looks pretty good. So yeah, I hope this video was helpful and that inspired you to go out and make something. And as always, thanks for watching.